And I'm also really, really grateful to have Sophie with us today. She has started an incredible business, and she came over to Virgin Startup for funding and support. And at the same time, she's also taking care of a beautiful family. So we're here to hear about her story today and just hear about how she's juggling family life and being an entrepreneur. So Sophie, first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and would love to hear a bit about you. Tell us a bit about Threads and Fibre and a bit about the story behind the business as well.
So hi everyone, I am Sophie and I am the founder of Threads and Fibre, which is a sustainable fashion platform. So I sell secondhand and pre-loved clothes and accessories through my online shop and on social media platforms. My full-time job is a mum to 4 children. So I have an 11-year-old, she's not 7, she's 8, 11, 8, 6 and 3. So life is pretty busy juggling work and family. This is completely out of my comfort zone, and I've never done anything like this before, which is probably the moral of the story, in that since I've set up Threads and Fibre, it's definitely given me a confidence boost, which I needed. So I definitely am a firm believer in pushing the boundaries and pushing yourself and learning from experiences like this. So if I go off on a tangent or start waffling, like, I do apologise. I am nervous, but yeah, here we are. I'm just going to treat it a coffee and a chat with my mum friends after school, and what can go wrong.
Exactly, that's exactly why we're here today. We just want to create a space where parents and guardians can come together and talk about, I guess, the opportunity of being an entrepreneur and looking after their family, but also in general about their business ideas. So nothing wrong can come out of this, and this is entirely a safe space. We're all just here for a chat. And what was the motivation behind starting a business?
So if we go right back to the beginning, when I had my first child, I definitely think I was naive in thinking that I would have this baby, return back to work, everything would go back to normal, I would stay the person I was, and life would just carry on as they are with a small person in tow. However, if anyone is a mum on here, they will know that everything changes when you become a mum. You change as a person, life changes day to day, everything. I, for me personally, chose to stay at home and bring up my first child. Everyone's got a very different stance on this and their preference. Some women want to go straight back to the workplace and carry on with their career. Others choose to take some time away from work. I was fortunate enough to have a husband that could support us financially, with a lot of sacrifices along the way. And we obviously went on to have baby number 2, and then baby number 3 was shall we say, a happy surprise. And just, I felt like over a period of time, it became harder to get back into work after having such a long time away from it. I think I felt almost unemployable because I didn't believe in myself. And also, I mean, whether you've got 1 child, 2 children, 3, 4, it is hard to juggle work and family life and get that balance. And I do think there is that whole thing, and there always will be, between men and women, that the men typically go back, they just carry on with their career as they are, whereas the women are, stay-at-home mums, and the ones that have to care for everything and do everything in the home. So coming out of the workplace for almost, well, it was a decade, it became intimidating, the prospect of going back to work. However, I think it was after child number 3 that I felt like I needed to do something for myself, just to prove to myself that I could do it, and for my confidence. So when we relocated to the Cotswolds about 5 years ago, I started looking at jobs that were available, and I got myself a little part-time job in like a clothes boutique in the Cotswolds, which I did maybe for 6 months. It was one of the best things I did. It was right at the time and it served a purpose. However, I remember standing there thinking, I am being paid £10 an hour. I'm working for someone else. I'm missing quality family time at the weekend with my children and my husband, and surely there's got to be a better way to do this. So lockdown obviously was a really key time for everyone, and I think it was an opportunity to reflect on what was right and what was wrong, and how we could, I mean, it was an opportunity to just, everything stopped, and to just reevaluate life. And I knew that I wanted to do something for myself, but it is that whole, where on earth do you start? So I spent probably 12 months brainstorming what I wanted to do. We had ideas, I spoke about it with my husband and family and friends, and I was always like, I'm going to set something up, I'm going to do something. And I think timing is key. Is there such thing as a right time? I don't know. I think mentally you have to be in the right time, in the right headspace to want to do something, because it is a huge responsibility to take on top of being a mum. But for me, it wasn't just about starting a business. I mean, obviously the money helps with the children and the family, but I was fortunate enough to be able to organically grow it with low expectations. So I didn't have the pressure of having to bring another income into the family, which I think again has had a huge positive impact, because I was able to do it on my terms. So I did initially start to blog, because I just felt like my strengths were being a mum, and that's all I knew, and that's all I was good at. And that served a purpose. That served a purpose for a period of time, but it wasn't enough. So I bounced around all sorts of ideas about travel, about days out with the children. But I think what's key when starting a business is doing something you love. Like, love what you do and do what you love, because if you don't, it just won't work, because there's so much effort and time and thought that has to go into running a business alongside being a mum, that it has to be a passion. And I absolutely, like, I've always loved fashion. My career pre-children was in fashion. I love clothes. It sets my soul on fire. Like, it's just my thing. So I knew that if I was going to pursue something and set up a business, that this was an area that was of interest to me. I've always shopped secondhand since I was at university. I won't lie, I am guilty of buying, fast fashion along the way, but through starting Threads and Fibre, it was, like I said, low expectation. I organically grew it into something that has become so much more than I expected, and it's probably, dare I say it, become like my 5th baby. So I think that's really important, that you do something that you genuinely love.
Awesome. I mean, I think it makes such a difference when you do something that you love. It. A lot of people say it doesn't feel like work, right? You just wake up and you're ready to go, and you're energized. Absolutely. Because you're working on something that you're passionate about.
Sure,
I'd really love to come back to a point you made around those 12 months when you started thinking about what was next for you. And can you talk us a bit through your thought process there in terms of perhaps going back to work? So what were the pros and cons there, and starting your own business? Because I think a lot of moms and a lot of parents and guardians are really thinking about, what are the risks I'm taking with starting a business versus what are the gains and the opportunities there? Can you tell us a bit about what swung the balance from going back to work into going into entrepreneurship for you?
Sure. So actually, before this started, I told you guys that one of my children last night was up unwell and is poorly. So subsequently today, he's off school. And that's a really good example of running your own business. That's a pro and a con. So obviously I had, when you run your own business, you plan things and you put things into your diary based around the children being in childcare and how it works in your calendar and your diary. Today was obviously a curveball. However, if I was employed by someone and I had to go to a job, it's that thing being faced with having to call someone up. Like, I don't want to be responsible or have to answer to someone that I can't come into work today because one of my children aren't well. I mean, having 4, obviously it's 4 times harder, 4 times risk of things going wrong. So for me, I felt unemployable, and it just didn't work with our setup. I think it has to be the right time and the right place, and you have to have the right infrastructure around you in order to set up a business. I'm fortunate enough that my husband is extremely supportive. and helps me with running Threads and Fibre. So I've got a good solid foundation at home to be able to do that. And like I said earlier, I'm not fully reliant upon the income coming into the house. I know a lot of mums that have to work and also have, you know, cleaning jobs and things on top of everything to try and bring in that extra income, because things are really tough at the moment. But not only that, for me, running a business and setting up something was so much more. It was, I felt like my identity had completely gone. Like I just had lost who I was and my purpose. I felt like my children were like my shields, and that I had to justify to everybody, you know, I'm a mum and this is what I do. And I had nothing else. I had nothing else to talk about to people. Like it was just, I'm a mum. And it's not a case of just being a mum, because it's the hardest job you'll ever do. You definitely don't get paid for it. And the rewards obviously are amazing, but it's tough. You know, it's really hard raising children and being a mum. But I also think it's important for a woman to have something outside of that, outside of being a mum, outside of being a cook, a cleaner, a taxi driver, a wife, a partner. Is something for yourself. And Threads and Fibre has built my confidence beyond what I could ever have imagined. And I think from the outside, before Threads and Fibre, people would have thought, you know, I had everything together and I was a confident person. But the reality was, deep down, I wasn't. I was just completely lost. I had lost myself. So Threads and Fibre has just been a really good thing for me. And like I said, it's become my fifth baby, and it's given me purpose, and it given me a reason. And again, because I love doing it, I think it just makes me a happier, better person. And therefore I feel like I'm a better mum to the children.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'd love to hear at the end if there are other mums in here that find themselves in that story of, you know, doing something you're truly passionate about and almost finding yourself or reinventing yourself after taking some time away to look after your family. Great. All right. So I think starting a business gives you a lot more flexibility, like you mentioned, Sophie, and that's without a doubt one of the key benefits of going on your own. I'm curious about how that fits in with your reality today. So you started Threads and Fibre. It was a blog initially. Perhaps you weren't quite sure about the volume, but it looks like the business is growing right now. So it'd be great to hear a bit about how busy you are right now with the business and how you're managing to balance that out with family.
So all I can say is there is not enough hours in the day to get done, work related and family related. I think I have a constant battle with myself that I could do so much more. But one of the key things is being realistic in what you can achieve and allocating your time to work efficiently, both as a mum and as running a business. I find personally, for me, organisation is key, both as a mum and running a business. So you have to find systems and things that work for you as an individual and as a family. So I love a list. Like I have lists everywhere. And I make sure that the time where I am child free, I allocate to the business and to Threads and Fibre, and also I try to get some structure and routine throughout the week. So I work as efficiently as possible during that time. One thing with running your business, and especially an online business, is it is 24/7. So you are, for me, you know, like a sale can come in at any time, any point in the day. And also, you know, communicating with customers and social media is quite hard to differentiate. But one thing I've been really aware of, because purely the children have picked up on it, is it's a positive. I think that the kids see mummy working now, because it's not just dad that's going off to work. They see that mummy has a purpose and that she's doing her thing, which is great, especially for, I've got 3 girls and 1 boy. So for the girls, you know, it's been a huge positive for them to see mummy working. But there's also been a lot of comments, you know, you're always on your phone, mum, or mum, can you help me with my homework? Can you do this? And I'll be like, one second, I've just got to respond to this email. I've just got to do that. So I think the balance, I try my best to do as much as I can when the children are at school and preschool. And then when the kids come home, I try to be present and in the moment. Definitely, as any mums on here will know, there's a witching hour when the kids get home from school, and it is like homework, dinner, bath, bed. and it's hard. It's hard to, you can't do everything at once and do a good job. So I try to be present. I also find that come the end of the day, I know a lot of fellow mums that run their own business do a lot of work at night. For me personally, as the day goes, like my brain capacity it nosedives, like, and I personally don't have the ability. And I also think it's really important to find that time in the day or in the week that you allocate to yourself. So whether that's exercise, doing meditation or yoga, going for a coffee with your friends. For me, it's that 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock where I'll sit and watch Love Island, some trashy TV that does not involve me having to think about anything, because it's just, you don't stop. Like, as a mum and running a business, my feet don't touch the ground. I don't ever sit down. My step count is just ridiculous every day. And I'm always having to think 10 steps ahead, you know, what's happening tomorrow, what's happening next week. So organisation is definitely key, but you definitely have to look after yourself for your mental health, and also just to be the best version of yourself as a parent and as, you know, running a business.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think that it's so important to make sure that you keep a balance between what you give to others and also replenishing your bucket, so to speak, so that you have more to give. And that's something that I think we find quite challenging as individuals. I'll be honest, I don't have any kids yet, and I still find it quite difficult to balance my time sometimes. So it's so important to hear that from someone that has such a busy schedule as well. It did sound like there are maybe a lot of parallels between running a business and being a mom. So being organized, taking time for yourself, thinking ahead. What would you say are the top maybe 2 or 3 similarities between being a mom and running a business, or transferable skills that you learn in one side that you can bring into the other?
I think it does come back to being organized and having structure in your work schedule and home life. So for me, yeah, you have to find what systems work for you and your situation. Also, just, yeah, it comes down to just balance. And I also find sometimes I'm running around like a headless chicken and doing 100 things, and my list grows by the minute. And I feel like sometimes I'm not winning, you know, like I'm doing everything, but I'm not doing it to my best capacity. And that's where sometimes I have to step back, reevaluate, and work out how I can do things better and more efficiently, because we're all, you know, we all have good days and we all have bad days, and there's no doubt, you know, I'm winging it a lot of the time. So that's one thing I'd say, that if the balance, you know, if the balance feels like it's tipping both as a parent and running a business, take a step back, try not to become too obsessed with anything, you know, like I've learned, you know, if we go away, or if I was to have a date night with my husband or something, just switch off, you know, at the weekends. I try to be present with the family and embrace that time, because otherwise it's just an unhealthy environment for yourself. So it's organisation, structure, finding the systems that work for both scenarios, and balance, making sure everyone's happy, but most importantly that you're happy.
Fantastic. And I think you touched on a really great point there around finding support, in this case, very luckily in your husband. Tell us a bit about the importance of seeking help and having people out there with you on the journey. And maybe this can extend outside of family. Who do you rely on for support? Is it your friend group, your husband? Do you have any advisors that help with your business? And at what point do you think that is becoming essential for you?
So I think support is a really huge positive thing. For many years when I was a mum, I was definitely guilty of not asking for support. I felt like I could do it all myself, and I didn't need help, and I didn't need that support. But actually, support, you know, I think some people think asking for support is a sign of weakness, and it is so far from. If you need the help and you need the support, then ask for it. Obviously, everyone's setup is different. So like I said, I'm fortunate that I have a really good husband, and for us, it's about teamwork. So compromise and working together to make it work. friends are, you know, bouncing ideas and asking for opinions from friends is again a really important thing. And I'm all about supporting, you know, women supporting women. And I've definitely found through the sustainable fashion platforms, definitely on social media, on Instagram in particular, there's many of me doing the same or similar things. But the support that everyone gives each other, and you know, encouraging and promoting each other's businesses, like that's key, because we're all in it. We're all mums, or not everybody's a mum, but majority of us are mums. We're all trying to run a business. We're all trying to do our, you know, our thing with the same goal. So I think supporting each other has really helped me. And it's just be kind and be nice to one another. Like, you shouldn't be against each other. But yeah, support can come from so many different, you know, even my kids, I ask my kids' opinions sometimes. Do I take it all the time? Maybe not. But the children definitely have an input, which I value. So whether it's your family, like grandparents helping with the children, I've got 2 sisters which help. So yeah, definitely I've learned over the years don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for support. And also, am I a pro at being a mum? I mean, I'd like to think I'm quite good at it. I've had 4 opportunities to get it right. But when it comes to running a business, I'm learning every day, and there's so much that I don't know. So whether it's, I'm fortunate enough that James ran a business for 10 years, so I can go to him with a lot of things. Virgin Startup, they offer, you know, so much help and support in terms of writing a business plan, your accounts, marketing. I mean, there's so many things. Like, my strengths are running the business and making it look pretty and doing the day-to-day work, but it's the behind scenes that I'm like completely out of my depth with. So there's so much available online for help and support, but I mean, we'll go on to that, I'm sure. But Virgin Startup, definitely, that was one of the reasons that I seeked investment from you guys.
Fantastic. We've got Darren here today who can tell us a bit more about what the process looks like, and maybe we'll save that for the end. But yeah, I'm just curious about your journey with the Virgin Startup and overall the decision of seeking funding. So initially you started with a blog, then you started the business, and it was growing organically. So at what point did you decide that you needed funding, and what did that process of getting funding look like for you?
So I was fortunate enough to have a small amount of money that we could invest into the business. So we used that for branding, to set up a website and my online shop. One piece of advice was, if you are to invest any of your own money into something, make sure you can afford to lose it, because until you try and you know that the concept is proven to work, you know, many businesses don't work. So it was an amount that we could afford to lose, and it wouldn't necessarily have hurt us. And through organically growing it over the past 18 months and proving that the concept did work for us, it was a case of I felt that I needed some further investment to go to the next level and grow my business to the next stage. So there's obviously lots of options available to people. We looked at private investment, you know, for equity of the business, high street lenders, which in my opinion, I would say they may be a little bit dated. They don't offer the same level of support and help. I'd say they may be a bit more resilient on offering lending to small businesses. They're more inclined to offer money to well-established businesses that may or may not need the funding. But as a startup, Virgin Startup, as a startup business, having had 18 months where I could prove that, look, this is what I've done, this was my concept, this was my idea, there's proof in the pudding, like this is working and it's got huge potential. I definitely think that helped with my application. And another thing, it wasn't a case of just submitting an online application and then it just going off into some system. You correct me if I'm wrong, I was allocated like a caseworker who we had various telephone conversations. She'd researched me, she knew about my family, she knew about my children, we spoke about holidays, we built a relationship, and she helped and supported and guided me to, if information that was supplied was incorrect or not in the right format. Virgin Startup had templates, and she would help me, you know, Sophie, you just need to tweak this, it just needs to, you know, just correct this, or So she completely guided me, and basically helped me achieve funding for my business, which I'll be forever grateful for.
Brilliant. Yeah, we'd love to hear that story. And I think one of the key things that we do here at Virgin Startup is exactly that. We want to offer founders, and in particular more women, because we know there's a little bit of an imbalance there, the opportunity to access our support and funding and take their businesses from A to B, yeah, and continue their journey. So I'm really glad to hear that you had such a great experience with that, Sophie. Tell us a bit about why you decided on a personal loan for business. I know you mentioned that you were looking at different options. So apart from the support that Virgin Startup is offering, was there any other reason why you opted for a loan for your business?
I think I've got so many ideas and plans for Threads and Fibre that being able to invest into the business would allow me to grow. I felt like I'd reached a point where I just couldn't. I could have I could have plodded along and carried on as I was, but having that investment into the business would allow, hopefully, my business to grow and reach where I want to. I mean, in terms of further funding in the future, like that may be an option and something that I look into. And again, there's various ways of doing that, but I needed that investment into the business to get to that next stage and to grow and develop. To a point, I can do it through social media. I can do things, but in terms of marketing and my website and the shop, things like, I've invested in a camera, I bought myself a laptop, like there's things that I just needed. I needed those items and those things to be able to grow and move forward and progress with Threads and Fibre. So hopefully I'm excited for what's to come.
We're excited too. So what's next for Threads and Fibre?
So super excited to announce that I am in the process of opening a studio space, which as there's a few people on here that will know me and my business, I have grown the business from my home, photographing in my garden with my barbecue in the background. Like I've just completely winged it along the way. But now is a time to open a space where I can curate, photograph, I can work from. It sounds maybe a bit more than it is. We are converting our garage into a space, but that's quite another key point, and that it's away from the house, but it's at home. So it means my child-free time, I can work as efficiently as possible by being close to home, but it's not in my personal space. Like I have been wrapping orders and doing it on the kitchen table. And I think anyone that you speak to that's growing a business, you all have to start somewhere and start small and grow it. And it's been a huge learning curve, and I wouldn't change a thing, but it is definitely time to move on to that next step. So the studio will allow me to have a separate workspace. I'll be able to do some one-on-one styling. So if somebody wants to come in and see and feel, touch, try on the secondhand clothes, and I'll be able to advise and help and guide them with their styling. So that's for me, that's the next step. And it will allow me, hopefully, in maybe the next 6 months, if things carry on as they are, to take on another mum to come and work alongside me. Because one thing I would say is running your own business on your own is you are quite isolated, and you don't have that ability to bounce off other people. Like it's just, I'm a one-man band doing it on my own. So I think hopefully in the next 6 to 12 months, I'll bring somebody else in so I can focus on driving the business forward, and then have that help and support from another mum, which hopefully will be good for that individual and give them a purpose, which will be, really nice to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, I love that. Mums supporting mums. And inspiring them as well. Who knows, maybe they are the next entrepreneur to work with us, and we could. But I have one final question for you, Sophie. What advice would you give mums that are thinking about starting a business, just based on your experience so far?
My advice to anyone that's contemplating starting a business would be make sure you love the concept and the idea, and you want to progress that. that business, because like I said earlier, love what you do and do what you love. I think it's so important because you have to put so much time and effort into it daily. Make sure the timing's right, so make sure you've got that support and the infrastructure at home, because if the timing's wrong, I think I felt that with my blog, the timing wasn't right for me, so therefore it didn't work. Believe in yourself, you know, like anything is possible. It's a huge it's had a huge positive influence on my confidence. So it's so much more than running a business. So just believe in yourself, know that you're going to make mistakes, know that you're going to learn along the way, and that's, you know, that's normal. We do that throughout life with everything. And just, yeah, go for it. Just don't be afraid. Go for it. And if you don't know what you're doing, ask for help.
Brilliant. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much.